Okay, welcome back to Senate Education, Thursday, May 6th at 3:39. Mr. Demaray is going to take us through the bill that we worked on earlier this spring on issues related to private religious schools and public tuition. So, Mr. Demaray, the floor is yours.
Okay, so for the record, Jim Damaray, Let's Counsel. We're walking through draft 4.1 of your draft bill, and it begins on page 2 with findings and purpose. And the first part of the bill is around use of public tuition. And the second part of the bill is on dual enrollment. Okay, so the first part of the bill, section 1, are findings and purpose. And I won't go through this unless you want me to, but this goes through the case law basically that we talked about, where in Vermont, schools are required to have safeguards to ensure that the use of this funding isn't for religious instruction. So the purpose of the act is to define those safeguards that a school district must employ to ensure that public tuition is not used for religious worship or instruction or propagation of religious views. So that's the purpose, findings and purpose. Section 2 is amending current statute, which is section 828 of Title 16, which is use of tuition. And what you're doing here on page 3 is you're adding a subsection B, which is the certification requirement. So B says that school district shall not pay tuition to a school. This is for a secular school or a religious school. So either case, you can't pay tuition to either type of approved independent school unless it receives a certification from that school that none of the tuition for which payment is requested has or will be used to support religious instruction or worship or the propagation of religious views. And 2, the school has adopted and implemented policies and procedures to comply with all federal and state anti-discrimination laws applicable to public schools and makes reasonable efforts to enforce these policies and procedures. That certification requirement does not apply to public schools. And then it also says that it doesn't require a school to comply with anti-discrimination laws from which it is exempt under Vermont law. And with that saying, again, we just talked about it offline, is that under Vermont law, a religious school is able to discriminate in terms of creed. So they're allowed to hire people of their faith to teach or to minister. And they're allowed to hire, for example, men to be priests. So there's some in Vermont law ability to do that, and this preserves that. And then it also allows schools to basically teach religion 101. So a survey course on religion is allowed. And then D on page 4, subsection D, says that a school district that is requested to pay tuition shall not make the payment if, in the reasonable belief of its school board, the school or program is not in compliance with the certification requirement. And the agency shall assist school districts in making that determination if requested. And it can be appealed to the state board. Then section 3 amends the public accommodation law to add subdivision B on the bottom of page 5, which says that this subsection shall not be construed to permit a religious school that receives public tuition funds to deny services, accommodations, etc., to individuals because of their membership in one or more of the protected categories, including sexual orientation and gender identity. So that's the whole first part of the bill. The second part deals with dual enrollment, which we have never discussed, actually. We never had a chance to. And again, section 4 is findings and purpose, basically going through how dual enrollment works, the fact that it's only available to students on public tuition, knowing that religious schools have been denied public tuition based upon their status, and therefore the students are denied dual enrollment privileges. It goes on for quite a while. And then section 5 on page 8 amends the current statute for dual enrollment to clarify page 9 that so this is the eligibility criteria. So back to page 8 for context. It says a Vermont resident who has completed grade 10 but has not received a high school diploma is eligible to participate in dual enrollment if the student is enrolled in, now it says an approved independent school in Vermont, including a school that is a secular or has a religious mission, to which the student's resident pays tuition. And then it says that a school district shall not deny dual enrollment benefits under this section solely on the basis of the school's religious status. So basically, it's clarifying the dual enrollment statute to make it clear that you can't deny dual enrollment based upon status, and that if the student's on public tuition, then they're entitled to dual enrollment.
Sen Hooker.
I have I think a basic question regarding the tuition. Now, the districts are the entity that pays the tuition to this school. Is there an amount that they have to pay?
Yes. So the way tuition is, this is for independent schools. So the general rule for payment of tuition to an independent school is the average statewide tuition for if it's elementary school,
Okay.
or for high school. There are exceptions to that rule, but basically that's the general way it's done.
Senator Pursley.
Jim, I looked up that reference of the exemption, but so either I'm not understanding how to look it up, or maybe it's not the right statutory reference of what they're exempt for, B on the top of page 4.
Yeah, let me go look at it with you, because this is not my area of expertise either, but this is what I understood from Damien. So let me just pull this up.
I wanted to see what they were exempt, but that looks like it's about restitution.
Hold on. So 21. Okay, 49.
495F is exemptions, but even those don't seem to make sense to this situation. But
Well, E says, and we're saying E here. It says the provisions of this section prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity shall not be construed to prohibit or prevent any religious or denominational institution or organization, or any organization operated for charitable or educational purposes that's operated, supervised, or controlled by or in connection with a religious organization So it doesn't prohibit these religious organizations from giving preference to persons of the same religion or denomination, or from taking any action with respect to matters of employment that is calculated by the organization to promote the religious principles for which it is established and maintained. So my reading of that is you can't discriminate based on gender and on sexual orientation. So that's so you can discriminate based upon religion. Just read. From giving
Well, I
preference to
can-
persons of the same religion. So if you're a Catholic school, you can hire Catholic folks and not hire people who aren't Catholic, or from taking any action. Yeah. So I think that is the right reference.
Okay, I guess I'm just looking at it. Or maybe the Vermont Statutes online. I'll talk to you offline about what I'm doing. Figure out what I'm looking at wrong.
Okay. Yep.
Committee, anything else at this point? Again, hopefully we'll hear from the AG's office, and that will give us some guidance as to what our next steps might be in this work. And if we were to move forward, our vehicle would be likely H101, which was sitting on our calendar, which is the House's literacy bill, and we would change that and put this kind of work into it. We had planned to put two other things related to the state board in that bill, but I would have those go into S115, and we would concur with further proposal of amendment on that when that gets to us. Then the question also that we could consider is doing two separate bills if we were to, and I'm not sure if we have two vehicles, to be honest with you at this point, that would make sense. And then, you know, as the pro tem mentioned to me today, there are possibilities to, you know, if this, the complexity of this, it does seem to warrant time in judiciary. Does this turn into more of a summer working group in some way, so that we, when we get back, we're hitting the ground running on these things? So all sorts of things to be considered. Jim, thanks for all your work on this. This has been incredibly helpful. And it also, the first piece that you did in answering a bunch of questions will help us all be able to talk with a level of fluency to our colleagues and to our constituents about our work. So thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome. I just posted in the chat that statutory reference that Senator Perchik was discussing. Yeah.
So that, do you want to say anything about that, Jim?
No, we talked about that.
Okay.
I just wanted him to see.
Anything else? Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else, committee? Okay, I've written to Senator Sears and forwarded the language to him. That might end our work on H183. We will have our vote on community schools tomorrow. Also hear from AOE. And I've also asked, or I've asked Jeannie to ask Peter Conlon from the House to come down and talk with us tomorrow about 115 and where they landed. So we've already talked about S16. I believe we're agreeing that we will concur when we have an opportunity to do so, but please feel free to continue to look at that work and see if you have any questions. We would likely have a vote on that on Tuesday.
Were we having,
Go ahead.
did you say earlier the AG was coming in about one of our issues?
Tomorrow, the corner office, the pro tem's office, is working with the Attorney General's office
Oh,
to see if they would come in tomorrow to talk about the church and state issues that are before us.
oh, good. This is a tough one.
Yeah.
Can I ask Jim, can I ask you a question about the
course.
two sections of the bill? So if without the first section of the bill, what does the second section, is the second section less is there less resistance to the second section if the first section is gone?
I think the way, well, it depends what you mean by section. So in the
W-
bill,
Well, dual enrollment versus, yeah,
dual enrollment is in the course too. So same reasons, because of this denial of dual enrollment benefits based upon religious status. So they're both kind of important. They're both related and kind of important.
Yeah.
And both being litigated. So I think the bigger question is the whole use of public tuition. Dual enrollment is kind of more of a subset, but they're both relevant and they're both in court.
okay.
I was going to say too, on S-115, I've got a side by side of that. It's quite a long bill now. If you want me to forward that to you now, so you can just start reviewing it.
Oh, that would be great. If you would forward that to the committee, that would be terrific. And then tomorrow, I asked Peter Conlon to just come in and give us the overview, give us some thoughts, where they landed. And I thought that might be helpful to frame it up. And Jim, if I know Jeannie, she will reach out to you if she hasn't done so already to join Peter if you're available.
Okay.
Take us through that side by side. Okay, committee. We're getting there. Thanks for everything. Have a good afternoon. Good evening.
Thank you.